The advent of Trumpian media approaches is something that's vitally, vitally important. And I'll tell you why, is because there's a psychological aspect to this. I'm someone who has, from time to time harmed myself because I'm the guy who's often willing to say the things that other people want to say. And sometimes it can pay great dividends. Sometimes it's super, super frustrating. But there's a psychological impact to this when you say it. I'll give you a couple of examples because I think Tom Homan, the border czar, I think he's a guy who's winning hearts and minds because he's willing to say things to people, A, we would never get to speak to. B, if we did speak to them, it wouldn't matter. And C, most people would never say. So let me give you a couple of examples because this is a psychology I've observed in human beings. When I worked at Microsoft, I was in a meeting, drawn into this meeting, where Microsoft was going to build its own YouTube. And it was stupidity walking. There was no way that we would do this because we would not allow people to post the sorts of videos that YouTube did. We wouldn't allow people to post clips of TV shows or music. And YouTube they did this so smart. I talked one time to the VC who backed YouTube, the main VC. His name was Roloff Botha, and I was talking to him about getting a job there and coming onto the team, and we got into a negotiation, and his negotiation was, yep, we can agree to money, we can agree to all this equity, you need to leave Microsoft before I put it in writing. And my response was, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. You are making yourself hard to sue. Microsoft's not going to sue you, so I'm not going to do that. They set YouTube up so it only had about $500,000 in the bank at any one time. Therefore, if CBS or ABC sued YouTube, the most they could get would be $500,000. Smart move. When I was in this meeting at Microsoft, organized by a senior vice president, they were talking about building their own YouTube. And as I listened through this, I finally said and raised my hand to this guy who'd been very good to me. I'll just use his first initial was Y. I said, hey, Y, is this a feedback meeting? He goes, yeah, absolutely. I said, we can't do this. This is unbelievably stupid. Microsoft will never let this happen. We're not going to allow the sort of viral videos that go up there. YouTube has built a snowball. We can't catch up to the snowball. Algorithmically speaking, we can't get there. They have 1,000 times more video being loaded every single day. Tomorrow it's going to be 2,000 times more. The next day it's going to be 3,000. By the end of the year, they're going to have more video assets than all the networks and film studios and music studios combined in the world. We're not going to catch up. We can't be done. The only thing we can do is buy them, and I'm telling you right now, because I've met with Chad and the team, nothing short of $3 or $4 billion is going to get that deal done. People didn't back me up. They just sat there. And why I said, okay, thank you for being the one who will say no and speak clearly. That's what I wanted to hear. I left the meeting. And a GM came up to me in the hallway and goes, dude, thank you. Thank you. And I looked at him and said, and I wasn't discipled at the time, so I used an expletive, something blank you. He goes, pardon me? I said, blank you. I'm new here, and I'm the guy who had to speak out, and you're a GM with all this juice, and you didn't say anything? Why did I have to do that? After that, I got a lot of other thank yous of people coming to me and saying, thank you. And I had a very similar response. Blank you. Why didn't you back me up? Had the same thing happen in talk radio when the speech codes came along. And we were being told we couldn't say this or that. And I was in a group discussion. And I said in this meeting, I'm not going to use that phraseology. I'm not going to speak these lies. I refuse to do it. And everybody knows that people are lying on our air. We get called out on it. I won't be called out because I'm not going to lie on your behalf. Once again, after that session, I got text messages and emails from colleagues and other radio stations saying, oh my gosh, thank you for standing up. And I was a believer in Jesus at the time, not fully discipled, so I didn't tell him blank off. But I wrote back and said it had been really, really nice if you had stood up and backed me up and said something, but you couldn't do that, could you? See, there's this psychological thing that people admire those who are willing to speak up. And this is happening within the Trump administration, and I think it's a very, very good sign because there's going to have to be a lot of speaking up. I want to show you something that Tom Homan's done, some things that Carolyn Leavitt's done. in the way of speaking up, and it's Trump inspired. But I want to start here with a guy, Richard Blumenthal. And Richard Blumenthal, of course, was a guy who pretended to have been in combat in Vietnam. He's talking about Kash Patel, who you know was approved and is the new FBI director, panicking Washington, D.C. Here's Dick Blumenthal talking about Kash Patel, and listen to the comparison he makes.
I've never seen any nominee to a position of significant responsibility that has as many disqualifying factors in his or her background. But I think that...
Wait, can we just stop that for a second? Eric Holder, who was a leftist radical from day one, didn't have those qualifications. Hillary Rodham Clinton is Secretary of State with 0 qualifications, who purchased her seat. Barack Hussein Obama, who had been a state senator and then a United States senator for a few years, a leftist organizer born straight out of the Saul Alinsky School of Leftist Organizing. Joe Biden, a leader of a crime family. Kash Patel has served his country in multiple capacities. All right, I'm going to try not to interrupt this anymore. Dick Blumenthal.
One comment about him that strikes me whenever I read it is the full quote from former National Security Advisor John Bolton.
Oh, wait. So, I'm sorry. I'm interrupting again, aren't I? Was John Bolton part of the crew who later said President Trump was a Russian plant? Was he part of the crew who decided that we should fund both sides of the war between Iraq and Hamas? Was he one of the guys who decided that we should do everything we can to get Ukraine and Russia into a war? Was that John Bolton? Am I thinking of the right guy? I'm sorry. I'm going to stop interrupting Dick Blumenthal. He's a very important man.
Part of that quote has been cited by previous speakers. I want to read the whole quote. Kash Patel's conduct in Mr. Trump's first term and thereafter indicates that as FBI director, he would operate according to secret police chief Lavrenti Beria's reported comment to Joseph Stalin, "Show me the man, and I'll show you the crime."
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm interrupting Dick Blumenthal, who's vitally important. And we'll get to Tom Homan. Show me the man, and I'll show you the crime. Hey, here's a picture of an 82-year-old woman who took a selfie inside the Capitol and then walked out, never vandalized anything, stayed within the velvet ropes. There's the person. What's the crime? Sedition.
Now, very few people remember Secret Police Chief Beria and the terror he caused in carrying out Joseph Stalin's edicts to destroy people's lives, to execute them, to eliminate their families. But the mantra of Beria and Stalin, "Show me the man, and I'll show you the crime."
Are we literally listening to this in the era of January 6th, in the era of taking a bookkeeping error or even bookkeeping lie that President Trump might have committed in relation to Stormy Daniels and taking an expired misdemeanor, a paperwork misdemeanor, past the statute of limitations and magically turning it into a national level felony, 46 of them? The blindness, the willingness to lie at this level. It's so good to have people who push back on this for what it is. People like J.D. Vance who push back on this. People like Carolyn Leavitt who's pushed back on this. And Tom Homan said something, and he spoke to a person to whom most of us will never get to speak, and that's the Pope. And if you're Catholic, I don't mean to offend you. The people who brought me to the Lord Jesus are Catholic. My dearest brother is Catholic. So I don't mean to offend you. I just mean to point out the fact that your Pope is an absolute heretic, and I don't think he's even a Christian. But he does have strong opinions about the border, and why don't you hear what our borders are said to him? And some people have said that the borders are. Tom Homan is ungodly for saying this. I don't think so. I'll play this in a second. We have a godly duty to treat the least of these with respect and love, because Jesus told us, as you treat the least of these, so you treat me. There's a way for you to engage in that in an interaction with a company that sells a product you will buy for the rest of your life. Every time you purchase Allen soaps, you are treating the least of these as God would have you treat them, respectfully, as if they're just anybody else, loving them. Now, I do not think of Allen, who's the namesake of Allen Soaps. He's the chief soap officer. He's 13. He's been through 18 operations. He's effectively nonverbal. I don't think of him as the least of these. And in God's eyes, we're all the least of these, but he can't talk. It's very difficult for him to walk, hence the operations, but he's a brilliant kid who loves inventing soap. And his dad built this company so Allen has a place to work. The soap, by the way, is fantastic. It's made in America. It's all natural, no chemicals. The fragrances are very, very unique. And it's not just Allen who works there anymore. Now Ian works there. He's also impacted by autism, as is Amy. So purchase soap from Allen Soaps. Dump the big companies. Go to allensoaps.com/Todd. Use promo code Todd to get 10% off all their products. And every time you're washing your body, you show that all lives matter. And you are, in fact, treating the least of these fairly. You're giving Allen Soaps a shot and then making it your soap. It's allensoaps.com/Todd. Here's Tom Homan in response to the fact that the heretical Pope has been lecturing America that we need to have open borders.
I got harsh words for the Pope. Pope wants to fix the Catholic Church. I'm saying this as a lifelong Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I was First Communion as a Catholic. Confirmation as a Catholic. He ought to fix the Catholic Church and concentrate on his work and leave border enforcement to us. He wants to attack us for securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not? So he's got a wall around to protect his people and himself, but we can't have a wall around the United States. So I wish he'd stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us.
There's a genuineness to this, and there are a lot of Catholics, because I've seen the comments. I got notes from my dear Catholic friends and family members. Finally, someone in the American government has stood up to the Pope and said, buddy, you have your own border. Carolyn Leavitt's been doing some of this. She spoke up to reporters who are saying, you're killing our free speech because we're not allowed to be in the White House.
Which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions.
Now, maybe they should have the right. Maybe we should all have the right. You could debate that. But they don't. There was no protest from CNN when a journalist who worked for Alex Jones was put in prison. There was no protest when a journalist who went in to film January 6th was put in prison. It's good to see people inspired by President Trump's treatment of the media delivering the same thing. In other words, God is truth, so let's tell truth.